Well, thanks very much, and everything you heard is pretty much incorrect so far. Nothing to do with the wonderful runners of this conference, but probably I gave them bad information. But I'm Barry Sheerman, I'm the MP for Huddersfield. I've been in this game for a very long time, and my apologies, I don't usually pitch up, speak and run, but there's a very important vote coming up in the House of Commons. It's part of our strategy to remain in Europe. I hope anybody want to remain in Europe with me? Good, that's a good start. So it is a backdoor kind of way over a bit of Northern Irish legislation, but it gives us the ability to test whether anyone's going to come along. And, you know, we're waiting for the crowning of the 10th Old Etonian Prime Minister any minute. And that says something about British society, doesn't it? The fact of the matter is, I'm under that a little bit of pressure. But I want to say, look, I've really come to this conference on behalf of 649 other members of Parliament and to say help. Because we need a lot of help from you guys. Because there's a revolution going on out there and not enough parliamentarians know about it. And we really do need you in classic ways. The longer we're in Parliament, the less we know about the outside world. And that is why I chair something called Policy Connect, which is an organisation that says, actually, you don't have to have a consultant, you don't have to have a lobbyist, you don't have, if you want to come into Parliament and tell us what you know and what you think government should do about regulation and what we should do about helpful legislation to make our country even more innovative and creative than it is, and to meet the vast challenges that I'm going to touch on in a minute, feel free to be open. It's your right. We have a Fintech all-party group. I got to know Barry James. I sometimes regret it when he phones me at 1 o'clock in the morning to remind me a parliamentary question he wants to put me to put down the next day. But we've known a long time because I am a social enterprise. I've started over 50 different enterprises since I've been in this political game, running from cooperatives through to private sector companies and a lot of social enterprises in between. And so that means for a long time I've been asking people for money. And it's a tough thing raising money, isn't it? You all know that, whether it's for a private sector, a startup, or whether it's for charity, it's tough. I used to be a governor of the London School of Economics, and we spent years with a fundraiser who never managed, two or three guys, they never managed to cover their salaries. And then suddenly we were inspired and we hired this woman, I think Sally Blair was her name, and we said to her, no relation. And she raised tens of millions of pounds. Yeah, people gave her tower blocks all around Holborn to expand the LSE efforts, and she just made an incredible amount of money. And one night I said to her, Sally, what is the secret of your success? And she said, well, you Brits, you know, I'm an American. You Brits, you ask someone for money, and they say no, and you go away and sulk for years. And we Americans, we ask 7 times. And even on the 7th time, we put you on the back boiler, yeah? So it's persistence, and so I spent a lot of time asking rich people to give me money to do good things. And when the big financial collapse came, it became even harder. And then somebody wandered in my office, it was Barry and some friends, and said, you know, you want to get into, if you want to raise money, why don't you think about raising it through social media? And so we were just starting to look at that, and so we really got organised. We had a Westminster Forum on crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, and we've been pretty successful, haven't we, Barry, in terms of 2 things. One was persuading George Osborne, this was an interesting field, when he was Chancellor Exchequer, and also persuading the Financial Conduct Authority that we didn't mind if there was regulation, but why don't we have very soft regulation that allows this new form of fundraising and finance raising to allow it to flourish, as it was inappropriate regulation in some other countries had really pushed it away from those countries, and here we were in the UK offering a much better environment. And I think we were at that time very successful to get the softer regulation, and yes, in the process build up a good rapport with the Financial Conduct Authority that we still are working on today. So, in a sense, that's what we achieved there. But we all know that that was only the beginning of new ways of looking at raising money. And of course, now we have this whole revolution where we see ourselves having all sorts of different kinds of alternatives to regular money. I suppose you guys have all been into this much earlier than me, but it suddenly, struck me, I suppose about a year ago, that, I wander down, I live in Blackheath when I'm in London, I'm the MP for Huddersfield. Everywhere I wander, I never have any money, never cash. And it hits you, doesn't it? You never actually have, I never have any money to give to a really good guy singing or playing the mouth organ or whatever they do on the tube. I never have any money. I know you can now give digitally, but the fact is we have transformed into a tiny moment of time for human beings. Our real change in the way that we conduct our life, even at the street level. And the fact is we are into a totally different age, and then we all get blown away by the digital currencies and the ups and downs that we're always going to get when new innovation comes, and we're all coming to terms with what we now face. Now, what I do want to say, because Barry has told me to say this, we're actually right that Britain has always been one of the world's greatest innovators. We've given the world as much structurally, our democratic system, legal systems, and industrially through the Industrial Revolution. Some of you who are scholars, how many people know where Huddersfield is? Put your hands up. Yeah? Who knows that it was the home of the famous group that didn't like technology? Yeah? The Luddites. They all came from Huddersfield and Nottingham. And they unfairly were described as people who didn't like the new technology. Actually, they didn't like the fact that new technology came in and broke all the old guild arrangements about how much you got paid and when you got paid. So what I have to say today is that we're not Luddites, not in Huddersfield, not in Leeds. As you know, some of us who are close to Huddersfield, part of the Leeds city region, you will know that we're making Leeds a very, very welcoming place for people of the gig economy and this whole tech society that we're trying to encourage. And I can tell you a little story that a few months ago I chaired the Yorkshire group of members of Parliament. And I said, why don't we have a go at bringing Channel 4 to Leeds? And everyone said, even the leaders of Leeds said, well, you're never going to do that. It's a waste of time and resources because it's going to go to, you already got the BBC across in Salford, the other side of the Pennines. It's going to go to Birmingham. It's going to go to Newcastle. Anyway, we threw our hat in the ring. We lobbied ministers. And where is Channel 4 going to? It's going to Leeds. And it's the way, isn't it? You suddenly change the environment of a city or a part of a city, in this case London. You know exactly where people who are in your sector are hanging out and where they're able to find premises and where they find people like them. Crucial thing is building a community, isn't it? You don't want to spend your time talking to people like me. You want to talk to people that know about your stuff. And so this was true then when we got into the early modifications of the financial system. Now things are happening much faster, and I have to tell you, we are very worried. We're very worried there are going to be new world currencies. It's going to be unpredictable how that works out. We know that some of the biggest companies in the world, which most people don't regard as benevolent, and I'm talking about Amazon, and I'm talking about Facebook, and I'm talking about, some of the global players that are going to have an enormous influence if we move to new forms of currency, new forms of world currencies that are both going to be leave us in a kind of turbulent period of human change. What we're going to be looking to for people like you is to inform people like me, legislators, people that make laws and make the regulation. You're going to have to help us give the regulatory framework that makes the good ideas thrive and doesn't let the beastly people dominate. I'm not saying any of the people I just mentioned just now are beastly, but you know what I mean. Yes? We've got to make sure that we live in a democracy. One of the reasons I deplore leaving the European Union, because, you know, if you're good, see the global trends, you know they are global. You know, if you're not going to be a part of a big player in one of the big groups of nations, and what is the future? It's going to be an enormous contest between the United States and China. And quite honestly, in terms of how China organizes society, I want to be on the American side. But I also want to be on that European side. And why I'm a proud European is because so much of what we can do across the nations of Europe makes much more sense, both in, not just about trading, but even indeed in culture, but in terms of how we share ideas, how we promote enterprise, how we trade with each other, how we help each other. I'm a proud European, but I'm also proud because of three challenges that we all face. We can talk about technology, we can talk about finance, but the three big challenges that we all face, we all know what they are. It's actually preserving and cherishing and saving this fragile little planet of ours that is in so much damage. We all know about climate change. I was with my family supporting Race for Life on Saturday, Sunday in Cambridge, and of course all the climate change campaigners have blocked off the whole of Cambridge, so we could hardly get into Cambridge, let alone support the Race for Life. But you know what I mean? The fragile planet, saving it is possible. But we're going to have to need the cleverest human beings, the best technology, the best understanding of how the planet works, how technology works, in order to save the planet at this late stage. So it's saving the fragile planet. Secondly, it's feeding the fragile planet. Increasingly, you know, a large population, this enormous population on this planet that's got to be fed sustainably. If we don't feed it sustainably, we know that we're... I was with George Monbiot and Professor Steve Evans from Cambridge Institute only last week, talking about the way we've degraded soil worldwide. The soil is almost got a very short lifespan now because of the way in which we have treated it, the way we have farmed it, the way we have abused it. So feeding the planet sustainably is the third one. And the last one, and most people, in any audience where I use the three challenges, peace, keeping a peaceful planet. And the fact of the matter is that's quite a challenge. We have not had a very long period of peace, even in Europe, let alone the world. We're in a very unusual position. I came back from raising money for a memorial for the Battle of Waterloo, because after all these years, 200 years after, there was a German memorial and there was a French memorial, but no British memorial. Yeah, and some people think we won the Battle of Waterloo. I came back and I had an American intern, and he said, "Mr. Sheerman, what was the point of that battle? You know, what was the point of all those people dying?" And I said, "Well, actually, it was 1815, as you all know. It gave us 99 years of peace, and there hasn't been 99 years of peace even now since 1945. Yeah." And another thing that people don't understand is that we have absolutely hallowed serious treaties with all those countries that came out of the Soviet Union and are now members of NATO. And if President Putin, and perhaps you all trust President Putin, always to be a sensible fella, if he marches into one of those with the treaty, we have to go to war. We have to go to war with Russia. And as I said to the Defence Secretary yesterday, does she think 82,000 people in the British Army was enough when Russia has 1 million and 1.5 million reservists? I won't tell you what she answered. She's all right. She's confident that we're safe. So they're the three challenges. And I just wanted to give you that context. But in a global economy, it's still important to have those strengths, you know, Europe, United States, and China. And you think long, the battle is going to be between the United States. And you know, I want to hitch my wagon to the United States. Trump will come and go, we know that. But you know, America is a civilized democracy, treats people well. You know, if there's choking atmosphere, you know, you can boot out the mayor, or you can make change. You stand in the middle of Beijing being choked to death, as I was only a year ago. And you think, who do you complain about in the system? Yeah? Who do you say that this isn't good enough? And of course, we can understand, I was on the delegation, I was on the committee that looked at whether the population of Hong Kong had accepted the one nation, two systems all those years ago. I was on the panel that went to see if the local population approved it. Well, you can see what's happening in China at the present moment. So I wanted to give it that world context and also say, look, we do have a very active group of members of parliament in Fintech, all party groups, that want to make common cause with you, but we are relatively ignorant. I thought I was doing quite well when I got to a certain stage in understanding how you use social media, for starting organisations, for raising money and doing all that. Where you are at the moment is a much deeper revolution, much deeper in terms of, and we can understand how thoroughgoing that's going to be. But we do want you to be with us. We want you to come into the Parliament on a regular basis to educate us. We want you to be in the regular seminars. And today I'm saying to you, if you think there's a group of people that we neglected, people like myself, and Barry will certainly help us, will arrange the right seminar. We'll arrange this, and we don't like talking shops. Great. The thing I hate is somebody comes along and you have a really good talk, really good discussion. I had one last Monday. You might like this. You probably know the whole of London's going to be dislocated by a massive building project. Do you know which one it is? Rebuilding Parliament. That is so massive in terms of how much material has got to be brought in, how much waste is going to be taken away. It's really a serious challenge to most of London. And the little conspiracy that I was organising was we are going to start a whole new way of a renaissance of the River Thames as a commercial thoroughfare. Yeah? Totally changing the way we build jetties, the way we use, the way we communicate, the sort of crafts that we're going to have on that river, and take it back 200 years as a marvellous thoroughfare for commerce. So that sort of thing. If people walked out of there and said, guys, that was really interesting, but it was a talking shop, we failed. And what I specialise in is starting commissions that said, okay, this is a commission, it has a purpose. I'm prejudiced. I chaired the Education Select Committee for 10 years. And it's a beautiful way of doing things. You take a project, you get a group of people together, you call the very best global and domestic evidence before you, and you come up with recommendations, say, this is what we want to achieve. We can do this in Fintech, we can do it in all the areas that are challenging at the moment, we can do it in the terms of the challenge of digital currencies of one way or another, but we can do it well. If you're on board for that, I'm the politician, and there's a group of us that want to build those bridges. And this is not party political. I may be critical that, we're going to get the 10th Old Etonian Prime Minister in a couple of weeks' time. Excuse my prejudices, but most of the stuff you can do in my place of work is very often just cross-party. It's not party political, much of it. On the edges it will be. But certainly where we need your help, it's making sure that this country is fit for purpose, that Europe is fit for purpose, being the centre of innovation, creativity, and sustainability. If you're up for that, I've come here to put my hand out and say, let's work together. Are you up for it, please? Yes? Yeah. Good.